Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 100. Yes, you heard us correct. Episode 100. It only took us 4 years, but we are here with it. Yeah, you're here with Corey, Doug, and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be running through the Oscar nominations for this week's ceremony and revealing who we would like to see win in each category. We'll likely throw out some that we know, like some ones that we're pretty confident are going to win as well. But then we'll also be running a little longer for this very special episode, which, if you can tell, is from the light in the background, is the first episode we've ever done, we've ever recorded during the morning instead of in the pitch black of night. And also the first episode we've ever recorded on a weekend. So 2 milestones for our 100th episode. But yeah, as we run a little longer, we're going to share our spoiler-filled thoughts on Dune Part 2. So we'll tell you to check out when we get to that, and then we'll talk about its first week at the box office and where our box office pool for the winter-spring season is at based on Dune's first week. But let's get the show on the road and get into our feature presentation, which is the 96 Academy Awards wish list. For this weekend's broadcast. What we'll do is we'll start with the smaller below the line categories and run through each movie nominated, and then we'll talk about who we each would like to see win in that category. And we'll start all the way with best visual effects and get all the way down to best picture. If there's categories where we're not comfortable running through who we would like to win because we haven't seen films in the categories, for example, in Best Animated Short Film, we'll just abstain from that category. We'll talk about the nominees, but we'll tell you if we're abstaining or if we have a pick. But let's start. Corey, Doug, unless you have anything to say, we can get right into Best Visual Effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Let's run through the categories. So for best visual effects, we've got The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Corey, would you like to go first with who you'd like to see win in this?
This is kind of difficult, but I hope I definitely would. I'm hoping to see Mission Impossible win for this one. That definitely connected with me. I think connected with a lot of people, especially with seeing it in IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
The visual effects that they put together for that movie were like pretty fantastic. But the whole category, there's a lot of really good movies in there. But I think that's the one that I would like to see.
All right. Doug?
I think I'm going to go with The Creator just because of I thought it was really impressive for the amount of visual effects and there was a ton of robots. They had like kind of those like robot human look to it, where like the back of their head was very robotic. So you could tell like they were human, but not quite human. And I thought it was just really, really well done, especially when you consider the budget of the movie. And just, I also am a little biased because I heard, what's his name? Who's the director of this?
Gareth Edwards.
Gareth Edwards. I heard Gareth Edwards talk on like a YouTube show I watched called VFX Artists React, and what I didn't know about him is he actually was a visual effects artist.
Okay.
Prior to moving into directing, and so yeah, so that's part of the reason why he was. I think that's part of the reason why it looks so good. But yeah, just I think you gotta. I know it's best visual effects, not best visual effects considering the budget, but I just think what they were able to achieve I can't deny like how, it looks like a couple $100 million budget movie and they did it for under 100.
Yeah.
and I thought it looked great.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I still haven't seen that movie. I need to, but what they were able to accomplish just from what I've seen in the trailers is, pretty remarkable for $100 million. Definitely looks a lot more expensive than that.
Yeah, I think it was even like 80 million or something crazy.
Yeah, the
Wow.
budget, the whole budget conversation is what led me um, between two movies. The Creator is the one film I have not seen of the nominees, um, but I was between Godzilla minus one because of its low budget and what it was able to accomplish visually, and then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 with all the animal work in particular,
Yeah.
and it looking just so much better than most of the Marvel movies that we've been getting. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Guardians based on what they did with Rocket and all his various animal friends in the film. Despite like strongly also wanting to vote for Godzilla. Um, but all right, so that's the first category, and we are already completely split. Um, so you've got an idea with how our brains are working with what we're putting into consideration when filling out our ballot. All
What's
right.
crazy too is about
Yeah.
this category, and I will probably find this with some of these other categories too that I'm looking at, but like none of those answers feel wrong.
Right. Yeah.
Like I could get behind any one of those movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could even argue Napoleon too. Like, I mean, the visuals of that movie were amazing,
Yeah. And like
just in a different way.
like Corey picked Mission Impossible. It just I consider it more like practical stunt work, so I don't really necessarily look at the visual like think about the visual effects as much. That's why I think they should have a stunt work category, because then
Mm.
like it'd be an easy consensus, like likely be a consensus pick for um
Yeah,
that.
I mean the visual effects in Mission Impossible, it's a different kind of visual effects because it's they're doing it so that you don't notice it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So like really good is it looks all practical and we don't think there's any visual effects,
Yeah, but
but
there like clearly is.
right.
Like he's not jumping, he's not going off. Tom Cruise isn't going off a motorcycle like off like land. Like there's a bridge there or a ramp there that he's going off of and things like that. So yeah, there are visual effects without a doubt, and I'm absolutely a worthy pick. Um, but that was my line of thinking. So all right, let's move on to best costume design. So here we have our first Barbenheimer category. We've got Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. What are we going with?
uh, oh man, this is tough.
Yeah, I mean
I
it goes into what you like really like think is important about costume. Like, is it just being a period piece and looking accurate to the times, or is it zanier type of costumes? And um, so yeah, what do you got? What are you thinking?
I I think, and this might change, but for the moment, I think I'm gonna go with Poor Things, uh, because the costumes for that movie definitely stuck with me, and I think that they like really added to the movie as a whole. Like Bella's costumes throughout the movie definitely, fed into uh, her emotions and her moods of what she was going through during that chapter of the movie. I think that was really neat. But again, I could get behind like any of these.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good selection of nominees this year, like kind of across the board. Not like not in this category, but all across the board. So there's some tough choices. Um, all right, so you're thinking Poor Things. Doug, what are you thinking?
So I didn't see Napoleon, so I can't choose Napoleon. So I'm just putting that out there because I'm basically looking at this category without Napoleon.
Yeah,
Um, but I would go Barbie. And I think the reason I lean Barbie is that one, it just feels like that was part of that kind of is what made the aesthetic of that movie, is the costumes and how they tried to capture the actual costumes and outfits that the dolls wore from different time periods. So much so that they like kind of call some of the stuff out during the movie as just making folks aware. And then I just can't help but, when I think of Barbie, think of the scene where Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie are both in like the cowgirl attire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just kind of like sticks out in my brain. So like, just because of the fact that like the costume design seems like so key to the movie, or such a big part of the movie, I think I gotta go Barbie.
Yeah, and I'm sticking with your pick. I'm going with Barbie as well. I mean, just from the first like moment of them being caught like filming on their rollerblades and those ridiculous type of outfits, like the costumes have been a major focus of the film, and I'm more inclined to go with something like Poor Things or Barbie, where it's like a little more out there than just a straight up period piece. I'm like, part of me is like, do I vote for Oppenheimer strictly because of the fucking hat? But I'm like, it's like so iconic. But ultimately, I have to go with Barbie for the sheer amount of costumes that are in it that like do play such a major role in like the visuals of the film. But not Poor Things. It was worthy pick as well. All right, big category. Best film editing. Here we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Who wants? We gonna stick in the same order each time? Corey, Doug, and then me, or do we want to mix it up? How are we feeling?
I'm good with whatever. We can keep the same order,
Yeah,
unless Corey gets tired of being put on the spot every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we can keep the same order. So again, I think very difficult, but I'm gonna go with Oppenheimer, simply because Nolan's, the way he edits movies is very much like, a like a staple with his type of style, like of filmmaking.
Very, very meticulously, and
right.
it's kind of why it's a major role in why his films are as popular as they are.
Yeah,
Consistently,
absolutely.
like you said.
Yeah. And then another reason for that is because I think one thing that, and I can't really pinpoint exactly what he did, but the movie felt very much like a historical documentary this time. Like, I don't know if it was the pacing, definitely had to do with the editing, but the way that he presented the film to the audience made it feel like it was even more like historical, like it was, very grounded in reality as well. And
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Oppenheimer.
All right. So
yeah, I'm on the Oppenheimer camp too. For all the reasons Corey said, it just editing was such a big part of this movie, and I don't think it works if the editing isn't right. And the fact that, for its length, it didn't really seem to drag. I think it just kind of. I think this was kind of a hard one to get right, and they got it right.
All right, we got a clean sweep for this category. I'm going with Oppenheimer as well.
It's probably going to be one of our few clean sweeps.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that both of you said. I mean, just the whole breakdown between the scenes and not like Oppenheimer's perspective and color, and then the scenes in Strauss's perspective in black and white, and just how it cuts between all of them. and really makes the film what it is until like peaks that crescendo, like towards the end, if you consider that the peak of the movie. Or, well, I mean, many people likely consider the Trinity test the peak, which was also a phenomenally edited moment in the film because it's cutting between so many people and how they're reacting to what's about to unfold. But yeah, for me, it's clear that Oppenheimer is the pick here. So, all right, another very big below the line category. Another one that kind of a lot of time goes hand in hand with winners of Best Picture, and that's Best Cinematography. Here we have El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. A lot of worthy winners in here as well.
For me, I think for me, I'm gonna go with Killers of the Flower Moon, simply because of what Scorsese did with all the shots, like all the environmental shots in the movie. He really the environment really was its own character. Like he set up these gorgeous backdrops, in that time period in the Midwest, that really aided to the story that they were telling.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely going to go with that, with Killers. It had such a great visual style too, like that I think was very him, but also was very unique in its own way too, because it was like a Western, type of film. That's
Yeah.
so.
All right, Doug.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting because I thought I was going to be on an island with Killers of the Flower Moon, but I'm with Corey. I think Killers of the Flower Moon. It's a really tough category because like Oppenheimer is like right there, but I think just Killers of the Flower Moon. I watched it and I was kind of blown away by the cinematography. I was also blown away by Oppenheimer, but I guess when I think back at it, I was just a little bit more impressed. And I think probably what sells me is just some of those like landscape shots and just some of the just cinematography kind of seems to take a bigger role in Killers of the Flower Moon, in just like all the land. When I just think back about all the shots of like the area that this is all taking place in, one of the really cool shots that come to mind is like when there's that fire that's raging right outside of the house. I mean, that was just, I thought, pretty gorgeous. So for me, it's Killers of the Flower Moon, but I wouldn't be unhappy if Oppenheimer got it. To me, it's like 1A, 1B.
Yeah, you put the words in my mouth. So you're very much not alone on this island. It's a crowded island. We're all going with Killers of the Flower Moon.
Wow.
It's kind of hard not to pick a Western. There's just so much opportunity for gorgeous landscape shots and things like that. And similar to what you said, like the scene with the fire, like this, whether it's scene with like the oil coming up, there's just so many impressive visuals in the film, and yeah, I think it's just a bigger aspect of the film than Oppenheimer. I guess Oppenheimer gets pegged for having too many close-ups of Cillian Murphy. That's the only thing holding it back. Less overall wide shots of the world and whatnot. So yeah, I'm going with Killers of the Flower Moon as well.
All right. Well.
So all right, we all got our first.
That was a surprise for me. I thought you guys were going to go Oppenheimer.
Yeah, and I think that it's probably between Oppenheimer, Killers, and Poor Things. So we'll see. But yeah, this is Oppenheimer's gonna. it's going to win plenty of things, and it's plenty of my picks. But this one, Killers, I think definitely takes it for me. So now we'll move on to best makeup and hairstyling. Here we have Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow.
I'm gonna go with Oppenheimer for this one, just because simply how they were able to really capture that time period and those historical figures throughout the movie. I I think they nailed every aspect of that.
All right, Doug.
I'm gonna go Maestro for a couple of reasons. One, I thought Bradley Cooper's makeup as Leonard Bernstein was, or Bernstein, I don't know the pronunciation, but I thought was great. I thought he looked really well, although I know that was like an area of criticism
Originally
with the
a
nose.
criticism, yeah.
Yeah, with the nose and some of the other things they did to make him look more like the actual person. Um, there's also makeup with the what's her name, the actress that
Carey
played
Mulligan. Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, Carey Mulligan. As her character ages and gets sick, that I also thought was really, really well done. So I think that's part of it. The other part is like I feel like that movie deserves recognition because it was a good movie. It's just it came out at like a bad year, I think,
Mm-hmm.
where there's just too much other good things. I think another year this movie wins more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even seen it yet, so
But
just to call that
yeah,
out.
but yeah, I think I would go Maestro, and this may be the only category I would go Maestro.
Yeah,
Unfortunately for that
it's a
movie.
category where I think it has a good chance of winning, actually. But I'm actually gonna split this, so we all have different picks, and go with Poor Things. Uh, I thought both the makeup and hairstyling was a major important factor of the film. With how each character looked and how they were all so unique and different from one another, whether it be Willem Dafoe's makeup and how he looked so. Uh, I don't even know how you would describe him. Kind of looked like a monster. And then you've got Emma Stone's look and the wackiness of Mark Ruffalo's hair. There's just so many, like each character, um, their costumes or not their costumes, their makeup and hair. It seemed like a lot of thought was put into each of them. And, but again, like I've, Maestro is a close pick. Can't argue really with Oppenheimer either. Full transparency, I haven't seen Golda or Society of the Snow.
Same.
But
I was thinking like I could see Society of the Snow having really good makeup just based on the trailer.
Yeah.
But just haven't seen it.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm comfortable with picking Poor Things based on having seen that. All right, let's move on to Best Sound. So here we have The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest.
For me,
I imagine it comes down to two different movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah.
One of them I haven't seen, so.
Yeah. So I think I know who we're all picking based on that. Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually going Zone of Interest in this one because the sound plays such a huge part for this film working. The way that they utilize sound to explain and show the horrors that were going on beyond the wall. You didn't see any of it. You didn't see any violence really at all throughout the movie. But the sound was done and executed so well that it made the movie still horrific, still very tense, and it aided in the overall experience. It wouldn't have worked without
And
it.
it's something that all kids or all audiences were able to see because they didn't actually show stuff.
Right.
Despite the horrors going on. All right. I guess I'll just say, Corey, I'm with you with Zone of Interest, because it's basically the star of the film or one of the biggest stars of the film. And the film just wouldn't have the impact it has without it. But Doug, I'll let you go with what I expect you to go with and what I think the race is between. I think it's a two-way race between the Zone of Interest and the other film.
Yeah, so I would have to go, and it's just because I haven't seen Zone of Interest, which is the movie I knew was like the other pick on this, but I would go Oppenheimer, just because Zone of Interest doesn't exist there on my list. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than Zone of Interest, but I thought sound also played a pretty critical role in Oppenheimer, and of course, one of the most iconic scenes of that movie is where the atomic bomb test goes off, and there's such a big delay between when the bomb drops and by the time the sound actually, and you feel the impact of it, and the sound actually reaches the all the different people that are testing, doing the involved in the Trinity test. Also, when Oppenheimer gives the speech, I thought sound played a pretty big role in that part too. So I just thought, just because it was so heavily involved in some of the iconic scenes, it just really just sticks out to me in Oppenheimer for like out of all these movies. Like I said, excluding Zone of Interest, which I haven't seen, just the sound placement in Oppenheimer is why I would pick it. And I'm guessing that's exactly what you thought I was going to pick. And
Yep.
yeah, it's Oppenheimer and Zone of Interest is
Yeah.
the race.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very confident Oppenheimer is going to win 7 awards. This is the one where I'm like 50-50 on whether it wins 8 awards. And then any others that it wins, I'd be kind of surprised. Not shocked, but a little surprised. So we will see this Sunday. All right. Best production design. Here we have Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Stacked category.
I will probably. Oh man, this is tough. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Poor Things. Just because of how unique the design of that film is. It looks so different than anything else that's on any of these lists or anything that was released this year. So I think that it's definitely the winner for me.
All right. Doug?
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to pick. Poor Things. The wacky sets and the uniqueness of the set of like just the art in general throughout that movie. That's just the one that sticks out the most. I think some of the other movies on this list that are more like historical in nature probably were really good, but just the uniqueness and the wackiness of the Poor Things production design. That's what I would go with.
Okay. I will be the odd man out on this one, and I am going with Barbie. Similar to what we spoke about earlier with the aesthetic of the costume design. I think the look of Barbie Land and how Greta Gerwig's team put together that made such a big impact in the film. Had such a big impact in the film's success. Just the overall look of it. I was actually surprised it wasn't nominated in makeup and hairstyling. I probably would have picked it in that category as well had it been nominated. And that'd be like its big 3, like below the line categories picks for me. But yeah, I'm going with Barbie. So, all right, you're the first time that I'm the odd man out. What do we got so far? Corey was odd man out on best costume design, and I was the odd man out on this one. All right, keeping it interesting, which is always good. So let's move on to some music. Best original score. We've got American Fiction, The Legend John Williams with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Killers of the Flower Moon from the late Robbie Robertson, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things.
Oh man.
Not the easiest of picks, but I've got my winner.
I do too, but I've got like what my brain says and what my heart
Ooh,
wants to
wow,
say.
that I'm interested. I'm interested to hear what both of those are and what you ultimately choose.
I'm gonna go with Poor Things again. I thought the score in this movie was it. It was so unique and it aided to the overall story in the film so well. Like it wasn't in your face. It wasn't something that was overbearing throughout the film, but it aided so much in the overall experience for the film that I think the movie would have definitely been a less of an experience without it.
Alrighty. Doug, what does your head and your heart tell you, and what are you picking?
So my head is that Oppenheimer score is the best score. Like Ludwig crushes it for Oppenheimer. My heart though is like Robbie Robertson's score in Killers of the Flower Moon is also so damn good, and I just hit me more emotionally. But like I can't deny how good Oppenheimer's score is and how great of a job Ludwig did. So I'm gonna go with my head on this and say Oppenheimer, Ludwig, but it kind of pains me a little bit, and part of me wants to give it to Robbie Robertson also because this is his final score, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like I shouldn't detract from Ludwig because of that, and
yeah, it's tough not to, but I understand where your head is ultimately at. Um, I'm going with you. I'm going with my boy Ludwig. He really picked up the baton from Hans Zimmer with Tenet and this, from with working with Christopher Nolan, and I just feel like this one did a great job with making the score sound both kind of classical and yet like modern at the same time. Um, and it was played just such an instrumental role in the film, similar to editing. Scores are one of the biggest roles that are a part of Christopher Nolan's films, in my opinion. Editing, cinematography, and um, scores. So
does it feel like? And I know I'm kind of jumping ahead, but just when I'm thinking about best original score and best cinematography as categories, does it feel like we already know who's going to win the best cinematography and best original score for next year's?
yes, wouldn't I think Doom Part Two is
Like I
likely
don't see
going to
anyone beating that. Like
is
I think it would
likely.
win. It would win
Yeah,
on this list.
yeah, I mean, when Hans Zimmer gives a shit about the movie he's doing, and it's not just like a paycheck where he has like a bunch of like people on his team kind of like doing it, and he's kind of half-assing it. Like when he really cares, like he's
Yeah.
very tough to beat, and he fucking cares about Dune. So yeah, and same with the cinematography. I mean, it's gonna be tough for anything to beat that.
Yeah, I mean we'll talk more about it obviously, but I just like when I'm thinking about score, I'm like, man, that Dune score was really good.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes down to like Nolan's boys and uh, Zimmer and Ludwig. But yeah, I mean, it's tough also for me. Like you talk about Robbie Robertson, it's tough not to pick John Williams. I mean, this might be his final score. It was another incredible Indiana Jones score, and I mean, the dude just keeps on trucking, and putting up great music. Say what you will about the film, there's no argument that the score is fantastic. But yeah, got to go with Oppenheimer and Ludwig getting his first win. All right. On the other side of music, we've got Best Original Song. We've got The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, music and lyrics by Diane Warren. I'm Just Ken from Barbie, music and lyrics by Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt. They Never Went Away from American Symphony, music and lyrics by John Batiste and Dan Wilson. A Song for My People. I'm not going to attempt to butcher the Native American title of the song. Before the part in parentheses that says "A Song for My People" from Killers of the Flower Moon, music and lyrics by Scott George, and then "What Was I Made For" from Barbie, music and lyrics by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell. That one I'm throwing out names for just because it kind of plays a role, and I think people are the names of either the singers or the writers are like synonymous with songs. So what is everyone thinking here?
So I'm gonna take a page from Doug's book and go with a movie that I think is gonna win, and then what I would like to win.
Okay.
So I think A Song for My People is gonna win. Just because how powerful of a song that was, and how much it aided to the overall story for that film. Like it was so important. So that's what I think is going to win. But I would like to see I'm Just Ken win for Barbie, because
it's going to be the talk of the award show. I think Ryan Gosling doing that number live.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Barring someone getting slapped or something like that, or the wrong movie getting announced, and then a mishap, which Jimmy Kimmel has had to deal with in the past, and he's hosting it again. But yeah, okay. So you're going with Killers of the Flower Moon, but you would like to see Barbie win.
Yep.
Okay. But you want Killers of the Flower Moon, but you wouldn't be upset if Barbie won. Is that how you're?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be upset with any of these. But I think that Killers of the Flower Moon is the one that is the most
powerful,
deserving, I guess, most logical.
Okay. Yeah.
Most logical. Yeah.
Okay. Doug?
I got to go with What Was I Made For with Billie Eilish and Phineas. I just think that song is really, really damn good. Probably one of Billie Eilish's best songs. And there's something about when she does an original song for a movie where she just seems to knock it out of the park. I'm really thinking about that.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die song, and how good that was, and the fact that she like came out with another song that to me is like right up there with that song with What Was I Made For. Yeah, I mean, she just like crushes songs for movies. Yeah, I mean, I just like this song. Like I said, I think it's one of her best. So I can't not go with What Was I Made For.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way battle between the two Barbie songs. It's just whether people go with the more show-stopping comedic number with "I'm Just Ken," or whether they go with more emotional ballad by Billie Eilish. I'm going with "What Was I Made For." I think it was like kind of the heart of the film and was always kind of there in the most emotional moments, whether it's just the notes playing in the background, which is also similar to No Time to Die. The song had a constant presence throughout the film. and then when the song actually plays, it's during like the most emotional, heightened like climax of the film, in the scene where Margot Robbie probably gives her best performance. Um, yeah, and like you said, I think it's just a fantastic song and another great song from Billie Eilish. So it'd be crazy if she wins. She'll be 2 for 2 at like 22 years old.
I think she's a little older than that now, right?
I don't know if she is. It's somewhere around that age. Maybe she's 23. Um,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say she needs to keep doing original songs for movies because she's really, really good at it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right. She's 22.
credit to her brother as well.
Yeah, I know.
Really
Definitely
such
not
an
taking anything from Phineas. I mean,
instrumental role in all her work.
yeah, and
So
they're kind of a team when it comes to
makes with the
crafting the
songwriting.
song.
Exactly. Um, all right. Um, let's move on then to I think 4 categories we're likely going to abstain from, unless you guys have seen. Oh, yeah, 4 we're likely going to abstain from, but we'll see.
I could abstain from at least 5 from what I'm seeing.
All right. Well, we'll start with we'll run through the nominees of each of them and see if we're abstaining, which ones we are. So we've got best live action short film, The After, Invincible, Night of Fortune, Red, White, and Blue, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. So Doug, you've already made it clear you're abstaining.
Yep.
I am abstaining as well. I'm hoping to watch Henry Sugar tonight, before the award show tomorrow, since I've seen most of Wes Anderson's work, but I can't vote for it now if I haven't seen it. Doesn't feel right. Corey, what about you?
This is one I'm actually not going to abstain from because I have watched The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and I could definitely see that winning. I mean, it's the only one of all the films that I've actually seen. But
yeah, and it's from somebody that the Academy loves, so yeah, would not be remotely shocked if it wins.
But I will say that I mean the movie, to no one's surprise, has the usual Wes Anderson flair.
Mm-hmm.
He does a lot of neat things in this film that I guess we saw it a lot in his last film,
Asteroid
which
City
is escaping me, Asteroid City,
which also came out this year, and it's funny that
yeah,
that film got no nominations, and his live action in his short film is nominated. Maybe he'll win for it.
yeah. He does a lot of work where it's almost like he's working with backdrops, where the sets are definitely more contained than they are. They're not actual on location environments, which aids to his style of where it seems like it's almost like dreamlike, cartoon or just not real. But that film definitely has its own visual style. So
Yeah.
I could see that winning.
Looking, this is actually his 8th personal Academy Award nomination, but he's never actually won. So that would even make it even funnier if this is his first win. Nope, he's been nominated in the original screenplay categories, animated feature categories, best picture, best director. But yeah, his first win might come in best live action short.
But his films have won before, right? Like just in
I mean,
general, some
his
way.
films have won awards, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's never personally won one.
Right.
All right. Let's then move on to best animated short film. The nominees are Letter to a Pig, 95 Senses, Our Uniform, Pachyderme, may have pronounced that wrong and I apologize, and War is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. I'm abstaining from this one. I don't know about you guys.
Me too.
Yep. Yeah, no.
Okay, I do not know what the favorite is in this category either. Maybe the Beatles one or John Yoko, just because their name will get them a win, but who knows? I would have thought Michael J. Fox would have gotten nominated for Best Documentary based on his name alone, but that didn't happen. So who knows what the Academy ultimately are going to think. Um, all right, then let's move on to Best Documentary Feature Film, which does not include still the Michael J. Fox story. Um, but we do have Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, and 20 Days in Maripol.
This one I'm actually going to abstain as well. I haven't seen anything from this category.
I am as well, and Doug, you are as well, correct?
Yep.
All right. Sorry for the documentaries lovers out there that we don't have any takes on here, but I think Michael J. Fox, this film should have been nominated, and we'll stick by that. Now we've got Best Documentary Short Film, The ABCs of Book Banning, The Barber of Little Rock, Island in Between, The Last Repair Shop, and Nenai and Waipo. May have pronounced that one wrong. One thing's interesting about the documentary categories are they definitely get like in the political realm more than anything else. So expect to potentially hear some political speeches. But I'm abstaining here. I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, me too.
Same for both of you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we flew through 4 categories right there. But now let's get to one that we will likely have something to talk about, and that's Best Animated Feature. One of our more recent award categories that were added to the Academy Awards. Granted, it's not even that recent anymore. It's 20 plus years ago. Next year we will be having, I don't know if you guys know this, but next year there will be Best Casting Director. So that's a new category.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll be starting up next year. So that'll be the first new category since Best Animated Feature. Otherwise,
It's
we just
like
lost things by like combining it. Like sound had used to be 2, and then they combined it into 1. But hopefully, we'll get a best stunt category eventually. But what were you about to say, Doug?
I was gonna say it's almost like a best ensemble category.
It kind of is. It's gonna be interesting to see what people's like what they think about when they think about casting. Like, is it one particular role that is going to be? Is it going to be the ensemble? I don't know. We'll find out soon. The BAFTA has only started that category at the beginning of this decade, so we're not going to really know what people think.
It's a little unfair for some of this because like you think about like, oh well, what had the best cast, and you're like, well, Oppenheimer had like everybody under the sun, but because Christopher Nolan can just say I'm doing a movie and
everyone's fucking jumping out of their seats. But yeah, do you think that way, or do you go with something like, all right, I'm going way back, but do you think like, man, Johnny Depp, that was a ballsy pick for Jack Sparrow? Does Pirates of the Caribbean win? Or wow, Robert Downey Jr. was a inspired choice for Iron Man. Do you think like in those terms?
I don't know. It's a vague enough category that you could go a million different ways.
100%. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of go in these similar like with the SAG Awards having best ensemble and kind of going in that route with their nominees. But we'll find out next year. But for best animated feature, we've got The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
For me, I've only seen one movie in this category. Boy and the Heron, I definitely want to see. I just haven't gone around to it. But I would only be able to go with Spider-Man at this point, which I also think will probably win, just because of how next level this film was. in so many ways. From an animation perspective, I mean, they do so many unique things with the visuals in this movie. Not to mention how much time was spent actually putting it together and animating it. Uh, it it's definitely like a masterclass. So I'd be shocked if that didn't win. But I know The Boy in the Haran is supposed to be very, very good also for different reasons.
Yeah. Doug, I think I know what you're going to
Yeah,
go with.
yeah. I mean, I've only seen two of these movies. I've seen Nimona and I've seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So I can't imagine Elemental.
You haven't seen Elemental yet?
No, I keep planning on seeing it. It's just my interest level just isn't super high on that movie.
Gotcha.
Um,
How is
but
Nimona? I didn't know you saw that one.
yeah, I like Nimona a lot. It's just it's not Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like that, like Corey said. I mean, that movie was insane.
hmm
With all the like the score, the voice acting, so like some of those visual, like they took all the visuals from the first one and like raised the bar. Um, I really hope this wins. I mean, I can't fully judge this category because I haven't seen them all, but
Yeah.
it'd be hard for me to believe that something's better on this list than that movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to our llast episode, you can check out episode 99 where we talk about our favorite films of the year. Spider-Man was number one for me. While I have only seen two of the five, Elemental being the other one that I've seen. Um, there would be no way in hell that I would end up picking anything other than Spider-Man across the Spider-Verse. So that is my pick. And I mean, I think it's a two-way race between Miyazaki and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I believe this would be the second animated feature to have two in a series win after Toy Story 3 and 4. The category didn't exist when Toy Story 2 was out. Um, but if Spider-Man wins, and Miyazaki has won before with Spirited Away, so he'd be one of the only directors to win multiple times for Best Animated Feature. I believe Pete Docter might be the only other one. Um, or no, him and Lee Unkrich have both won. But yeah, it's Spider Man for me, and I imagine Beyond the Spider Verse, I could just check it off now as my winner in the year unknown.
2030.
Yeah. All right, consensus pick there from us. All right, now we've got Best International Feature Film. Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll be abstaining in this category.
Yeah, this was the fifth one I was alluding to.
Yes, I figured it was. Here you have to put an asterisk because France's committee made an incredibly egregious decision in not putting up Anatomy of a Fall as their film to be nominated, because then you'd actually have a race. But I think it's very clear that of which film is going to win because that film was not nominated or not eligible. But we've got what do we got? Io Captiano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, and The Zone of Interest from the UK. I think, Corey, you and I have both probably only seen one of the films. And
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer based on, I mean, you look at all the above-the-line categories it's nominated for, it's clearly going to win. We're both going with The Zone of Interest. I presume, or are you abstaining and just not voting for anything?
No.
I mean, it was on your top five favorites, so I would assume it
Yeah.
is your pick as well.
Yeah, Zone of Interest is definitely my pick. I haven't seen any of the other films in this category, but like what Murph said, I think it is the resounding favorite of the category. It was such a fantastic film in so many different ways, and very unique, and really drove home, the theme that it was trying to execute, and it took that subject matter, which is horrific, and it told that story in a very, very unique way, very different way than we've ever seen before.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
not to mention the performances were just unbelievable. So I think that's going to be the overall winner. Now, it's funny because if Anatomy of a Fall was in this category, I would definitely be, kind of at a crossroad, because that was also a fantastic film. Very weird that it did not make it into the category, but France.
France didn't submit it, so
France.
every country gets one film to submit, and they did not submit it. I believe the committee got fired from France. Fired their committee after this blunder. But yeah, no, I mean, I would be picking Anatomy of a Fall if it was
Yeah,
nominated.
I think so too.
I thought that and Zone of Interest were both fantastic films, but they didn't. So the Zone of Interest is my pick. All right, now let's get into the 8 above the line categories. We'll start with the screenplay categories. We've got best original screenplay. I'm very interested to see what you guys both pick in this and adapted, because they're not easy. Anatomy of a Fall, or so best original screenplay, Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Maestro, May December, and Past Lives.
I think I'm going to. This is difficult. I'm going to end up going with The Holdovers, just because that film like just really hit home for me, and I think that the screenplay was executed so well, on like every level. Great drama, great comedy, very engaging story. The characters were interesting. Like it hit all of the categories that you would need for, a good screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
But I I could even argue, other movies that I've
Certainly.
seen.
Yeah.
It's even like May December was another one that I'm in between, because I thought that was a pretty ingenious screenplay as well. So
Yeah.
difficult category, but holdovers for me.
All right, Doug.
Yeah, this category isn't as difficult for me just because one movie kind of just stood out more as just connecting with me, and that would be The Holdovers. Um, yeah, I just thought the dialogue between the characters. I mean, it's pretty much a very heavy dialogue movie. Um, a lot of these movies, I guess, are on this list are, but just the way the characters were written and the overall story, just I thought. I agree completely with Corey. It was just really, really, really well executed. So I'm going with Corey on The Holdovers.
All right, and I am going to be the holdout here. I'm going to go with Anatomy of a Fall. I did not expect it to be as compelling as it was. The fact that I was riveted for the well over 2 hours. What was it? 2.5 hours, maybe even longer than that, for a procedural, like courtroom drama, and just the way that it was like so much more than that. From what Justine Triet and Arthur Harari, I believe that's actually her. Her partner. So funny since it's a movie about a wife potentially murdering a husband, and they wrote it together as a couple. But yeah, this is going to be where I show Anatomy of the Fall some love, since it didn't get that nomination for Best International Feature. But yeah, it was tough kind of not picking Past Lives. And I mean, so many of these films, like you can make an argument for really all. I think Maestro would be the only one I wouldn't have. In a world, there's a world where I wouldn't have picked that one, but there is a world where I could have picked the other four. So that's that for me. Now we got best adapted screenplay, which is an interesting one because one of them doesn't really seem like an adaptation, while the other four very much are adapted from books.
Yeah, I forgot that this one movie was on the list, and I was like,
Yeah, it
there should
changes
have
the
been an
game.
original
Changes the game.
screenplay.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
So here you have American Fiction, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. So we've got the Barbenheimer category, big one. This is Greta Gerwig's big nomination, since she didn't get that Best Director nomination, and she wasn't one of the producers of Barbie. So does she get some love here potentially? But what are we going with?
Man, this is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the tougher of the two.
Okay, so what I think is going to win is Oppenheimer. That's what I think is going to win. What I would like to win is Barbie.
Okay.
Because like what you were alluding to, I mean, you wouldn't think that this is adapted. I would think that this was an original.
It's not
Yeah, I mean,
adapted.
it's other than having character names and costumes, like.
But how do you
It's based on
justify?
It's based on an IP, but like the script is 100% original.
Yeah.
But Maestro is based on like real life people, so like how does those two?
Yeah, you got a good point there. But they didn't base it off. Yeah, it's bullshit. I mean, it should be nominated.
It doesn't make any
for
sense.
Best Original Screenplay.
Yeah,
but so to my point is this Barbie should I think it should win one of these screenplays. I think it should have been an original, and I think it should have won there personally.
It had a much better shot if it was an original.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so as well. So you're not. Oh wait, so Corey, you're not picking Barbie.
Barbie is the one that I would like to win.
Okay, so you're on your ballot. You're putting down Barbie.
Yeah, but I don't. But it's interesting because I don't think it's adapted screenplay, but just it's the category that it was picked for.
Yeah,
that's what.
I mean, maybe it makes it stand out amongst everyone, and then everyone has sympathy for Greta Gerwig as well, and this is the highest achievement it likely could get at the Oscars. But yeah, I mean, similar to like how sequels are automatically thrown into adapted, even though like a sequel is a completely original script. It has existing category, like existing characters and stuff, but it's a fucking original. Like what they're writing. So
it started as an original,
unless it's a sequel based off of like a book or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But all right, so Barbie for you, Corey. Doug, what are you thinking?
I think this is where I give American Fiction some love.
I would, yeah. I agree with you on that one too.
Just because I think the screenplay was just really good. The writing was for Jeffrey Wright's character. I mean, for all the characters, I just thought was really well done. I haven't read the novel Erasure. I didn't really hear of it until I saw it at the end of the movie that this was based on a novel called Erasure. But to me, this just the screenplay was just such a major part of American Fiction, and the dialogue between the characters was just so well done. And it was, there were serious elements to it, but then there were also it was also really funny. So I mean, I lean American Fiction, but this was a lot harder than the other category for me.
Yeah,
I thought a lot about this, and I kept going back and forth a few times with a couple of different ones.
What were the other ones you were going back and forth with?
I think there's an argument for Poor Things, and then Oppenheimer. Barbie wasn't on my
So
list.
base.
Just
Okay.
yeah, Barbie basically wasn't on my list because to me it's not the strongest out of this category. I think, like I said, I think it has a much. I it'd be a lot. It would make best original screenplay a lot harder because I think Barbie stands a better chance there, and
Yep.
I'd be more likely to pick it. But there's just this category is too strong for me to pick Barbie in
Yeah.
contention. But probably it's probably American Fiction and Poor Things.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I'm picking American Fiction. Thought it was like a pitch perfect satire with a lot of um, heart in it as well. Um, that's my pick. It's tough, like with Barbie. I mean, I think it's gonna come down to between American Fiction or Barbie, unless Oppenheimer like does a sweep. Um, but Yeah, ultimately, I have to give American Fiction some love, and its screenplay is probably the best aspect of the film. Um, Outside of maybe Jeffrey Wright's performance. Yeah, I'm going that. But interesting, Doug, you're going with comedies for both, or dramedies for both your screenplays, which are same with you. Well, Corey, I mean, Barbie's, yeah, it's kind of a dramedy, mostly more comedy. But
Yeah, those are just
Yeah,
the
I
ones
mean,
that.
screenplays like is the best shot comedies have to win like a big award over like director and picture. Um, you can get some comedic performances every once in a while, but comedy tends to get a lot more love in the screenplay categories. What were you gonna say, Doug?
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, I mean, those were just they shined. I think it's comedy's not always super easy, and especially like the comedy drama aspect to kind of walk that line.
Mm-hmm.
I think is can be difficult, and just American Fiction and Holdovers. I thought both did it like exceptionally. So
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to acting then. We'll start with Best Supporting Actor. Here we have Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things.
RDJ. He's gonna win this. I think he should. Um, I could see arguments for Robert De Niro. Sterling K. Brown was another one that kind of came out of nowhere for me because I just watched American Fiction a couple nights ago. Uh, Fantastic, just such a great performance. But ultimately, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Strauss was like just not only one of the best performances of this movie with how crazy of a cast it has, but I think it's one of his best performances in his career.
Yeah. Um, Doug?
so I think Robert Downey Jr. is gonna win. Um,
Yeah, I think it's clear that he's
to
winning.
to me, I'd probably actually go Robert De Niro over Robert Downey Jr. To
All
me,
right.
it's kind of. I just thought Robert De Niro was so damn good in Killers of the Flower Moon, and it's just like
It was.
no one even
No
talks
one's
about
talking
it,
about it. No.
which kind of blew my mind because I just thought he crushed it. I think Murph, you said this like the last time we talked. Like people just expect De Niro to be really good, and
Mm-hmm.
DiCaprio, and like so those guys don't really like get talked about. Like DiCaprio's not even on here, um, but to me, it was one of Robert De Niro's best performances. I haven't seen him this good in a really long time, and I think he should get I would pick him if I was picking who I thought was the best, but I mean Robert Downey Jr. did a great job. Like he did really good. This was the performance probably of his career. Makes sense that why you would give it to Robert Downey Jr. over Robert De Niro as an awards show, and I probably if I'm the Academy, would maybe pick Robert Downey Jr. just to make sure that he got the recognition that he deserved for this performance.
Yeah,
But
and he's going to give a damn good speech. Like that's a
yeah,
guarantee as well.
so like yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to recognize him. If I had to pick who gave the best performance, I would lean more Robert De Niro,
Okay,
personally.
so we're going with Robert De Niro for you. For myself, I'm going with Robert Downey Jr. Once I saw the film, it was pretty clear that he was going to be my pick by year's end, which is crazy since he came out in July. Um, I mean, it's been exhausting watching him win every single award show, um, but I just think he gave a phenomenal performance. It was so refreshing to see him do something out of the Marvel world. I think that probably played a little bit of an impact in how powerful his performance was. But he just crushed it under Christopher Nolan and under his direction. And yeah, in a movie called Oppenheimer, I thought Louis Strauss was the ultimately the best performance and the most kind of interesting character. So yeah, for me, it's Robert Downey Jr. I do think I kind of slept on De Niro. Even I like me personally, like don't appreciate him or I over appreciate him, so I don't really even consider him. I'm just like you're supposed to be good. You're Robert De Niro,
Yeah.
but I don't think I even fully grasped like how great he was until like reflecting on it. Um, but yeah, Sterling K. Brown was one where I was like, "Fuck you!" Like kind of he killed it in like in a true supporting type of role. Like it wasn't like a co-lead type role or anything like that. Like it was very much supporting. Mark Ruffalo was hilarious. Ryan Gosling was hilarious. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going with Downey as well for his first win.
Very strong performances as a whole.
Yes, totally. All right, best supporting actress. The winner is clear going into it as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be
I bet we're all gonna pick the
Devine
same.
Joy Randolph as the winner. But the nominees are Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Daniel Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrara for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Naiad, and Devine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Are we all going with Devine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers? Like the Academy
Yep.
will be on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That was that's the easiest one I think we've had to do.
Yeah. Yes, it was. There was like part of me that's like, damn, Jodie Foster crushed
I
it.
know. I was like, it's a shame that this holdovers came out the same year,
Yeah.
because I would love to give Jodie Foster some love, because she did kill it.
Yeah. Like it'd be her third win. And her first one since Silence of the Lambs. So it's been a long time. And it's such a different type of performance from her from the films I have seen her in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Randolph. One of three pieces of a perfect puzzle. So ultimately, have to go with her. But all right, let's move on to Best Actor. Here we've got Bradley Cooper for Maestro, so his third nomination. One of three nominations for him this Sunday. Coleman Domingo for Rustin, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction.
I'm definitely going with Jeffrey Wright for this one. I just think that his performance was absolutely fantastic in this film. I think that Paul Giamatti's probably going to win, but which was my original choice. But after seeing American Fiction, I think Jeffrey Wright should win. It was just such a great performance.
Okay.
Resonated with me very much so.
Yeah, no, phenomenal performance. Doug?
I'm going to go Paul Giamatti. Um, yeah, I mean, Holdovers is a fantastic movie. A big part of it is Paul Giamatti's performance as kind of this bitter old teacher. Um, I thought he did, he played that role perfectly. I think this was a role that was kind of made for him.
It's funny when you look at all his flaws, and yet it's like, yeah, it was made for him.
He just does that. He just captured that character so damn well. Um, and I'm excited. I'd be excited for his acceptance speech and seeing him take the Academy Award to In-N-Out and grab a burger.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, this one is a category where I think Cillian Murphy is the front runner, but Paul Giamatti could potentially win. It seemed originally like Paul Giamatti was the front runner with Cillian Murphy potentially winning, but the tides have kind of turned, and I think this is one of those 7 that I think Oppenheimer is likely to win. But for me, it's between Paul Giamatti and Jeffrey Wright. But I'm leaning towards Paul Giamatti. I mean, Dominic Sessa should have also been nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and all three of the actors that carried that film should have been nominated. But yeah, Giamatti, I just think deserves his first win. I mean, I think Jeffrey Wright does as well. But I think this is going to be the role Paul Giamatti's ultimately most likely remembered for, unless you're a TV watcher and Billions is what you remember him for. Well, I mean, I think Jeffrey Wright probably, I don't know if this necessarily is going to be the defining role of his career, maybe. But yeah, for me, Giamatti, it was such a tough, it was like you could flip a coin for me with this category for these 2 people. Which is crazy because it's like it's 2 like kind of comedic roles with dramatic elements. But yeah, comedy doesn't get enough love. Holdovers, Paul Giamatti for me. All right, Best Actress. This for me is the toughest category.
Yeah,
it's fucking like head heart. What do you like? How do you look at it? So here we've got Annette Bening for Naiad, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. 5 fucking powerhouse performances. But I think it's between 2. I think it's between Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone. I'll be interested to see if all of us pick one of those 2.
they're the opposite performances too, right?
They couldn't be any more different.
Very reserved, understated.
Yeah.
Emma Stone over the top,
as showy as you can possibly be. But not in a degree that it's like embarrassingly showy. Like it's a great performance.
Yeah, which is hard to do.
Yeah, it's a fucking tightrope walk. Tough balancing act. But yeah, this is the hardest one. Like if I actually had to fill out a ballot, it would be incredibly hard for me to choose between these 2. It's hard enough just to choose, and what I'm saying now doesn't actually matter. But what are you guys thinking?
At this exact moment, I'm gonna go with Lily Gladstone, but it's probably gonna change now. But yeah, I'm gonna pick Lily Gladstone. Not to say that Emma Stone's performance was worse. It wasn't. Different. I think they're both fantastic. I mean, everyone that I've seen on this list is just stellar. But ultimately I'm going to go with Lily Gladstone because I think that movie would not have worked as well if her performance wasn't as strong as it was. She was the heart of the film, and she didn't even really have a lot of dialogue in the movie. A lot of the performance was just her emoting, just her face. You know, you just saw like, you know, all of the emotion on her face in a lot of those scenes. It was just fantastic. Not to mention you know, this is like one of her first movies that, you know, at least first movie that I've seen her in. So
yeah,
she's a very new actress.
As far as I'm aware that I've seen her in.
So it would be really great to see her come in and, you know, take this award. And I'm sure, I mean, her career, this is only the beginning. So, but
yeah,
very strong performance. That's what I would go with for this minute.
Exactly. Doug?
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard one and definitely gone back and forth, but I think if I'm filling out the ballot, it would probably be Lily Gladstone as well, just because I think it'd be nice to see her win. She had a great performance, although, you know, the biggest thing going against her, I guess, is that it wasn't a showy performance, and she's not in fairly large chunk of the movie.
Yeah, I think she's only in about an hour of a 3.5 hour film. You put her in supporting. You put her in the supporting actress category. She fucking easily wins. And you see her and Emma Stone win.
Yeah, that's probably where she should be.
Yeah,
but then you lose Divine Joy Randolph. So
yeah, exactly. And like
this,
despite her only being in an hour of the movie, she is like the heart and soul of it. The movie starts and ends with like her, it starts with her narration, like she's your introduction to the world, and the movie ends talking about her.
Yeah, that's why I think it's kind of like two different answers for me. Like if you had to pick performance, it'd be just purely performance. It'd probably be Emma Stone, just because like she is that movie.
Yeah.
But I think
another thing that makes them so different.
Yeah, if I had to pick like who am I writing on I'm writing on the ballot, I think it's Lily Gladstone, which I think is what we're saying, right? Who would put on the ballot?
Yeah.
So damn tough. There was a time where I was like, all right, I think like I would. Oh, once I saw Killers, I was like, all right, Lily Gladstone's gonna be my winner. And then when they put her in Best Actress, I'm like, okay, this could make it more difficult. And then when I saw Poor Things, I'm like, fuck. Emma Stone just crushes it.
She does.
But Lily Gladstone fucking crushed it too. She's never been nominated. Like, she did this so much in a non-showy role where she made such an impact. Where I don't even think Emma Stone wants to win. She's won before. I think I think she would vote for Lily Gladstone and would rather see her win than win herself. So I'm picking Lily Gladstone. I think it'll be like an incredible moment, and she's fucking absolutely worthy of winning. And who knows if she'll ever get an opportunity as good as this one again. While we know Emma Stone is going to get tons of more great opportunities in the future.
That's what Emma wants. Is Lily Gladstone away?
Yeah. So, yeah, there we go. Consensus pick. Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. All right. So now we've got Best Director, and then we'll follow it up with Best Picture. So Best Director, we've got Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. How far does each of our fanboyness come out in this category?
Yeah,
fucking I have two of my favorite, probably two of my top three directors of all time. Maybe my top two directors of all time are in it.
Yeah, I've already made a deal with myself on how I was going to do these top two categories. So.
Okay, fair enough. And then
I've given a lot of thought on how I handle this.
Yeah, and the other three all killed it as well.
Yeah, I would probably, and I think this is in the realm of where Doug is probably going.
So it seems like we're getting a split from you two for Best Picture or Best Director.
You are for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to. I'm gonna give Best Director to Nolan, for Oppenheimer. Just because, I mean, yes, fanboyness, but I think ultimately this is, for the moment, in my eyes, one of the most worthy of, in the category. I would like to see him, win Best Director. But man, it's tough. Everyone, I mean, all of these films were just fantastic.
Yeah. Doug?
Yep, Christopher Nolan. Let's give the man his flowers, his due.
Yeah.
It's time for him to finally get Best Director for a movie.
Oh yeah, and yeah, he's never won one. That's also a good point.
Yeah, he's never won any. He's never won any Oscar. So
this is his year. You got to give it to Christopher Nolan, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he could potentially. I mean, there's the opportunity for him to win 3 this year. He's up for picture, director, and screenplay. But yeah, I mean, I think he's locked. And he's my pick for Best Director, Christopher Nolan. Would love to see Marty win a second one. Sucked that this was the year that Killers of the Flower Moon came out, because it went up against Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer. But yeah, for me, it was clearly like the best directed film of the year, and like we said, Nolan is overdue. The man deserves his Oscar. So, all right. That was easy. Now we'll move on to Best Picture. We'll see if there are splits, or well, Doug, you already admitted there's a split. We'll see if any of them align with Best Director. So we've got our 10 nominees for Best Picture, which differentiates it from every other category with our 5 nominees. I know there's some categories that could have less than 5 in certain years, but Best Director is always with 5, so it's what makes it interesting between picture and director. So we've got American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
I'm actually going to go back to my original choice from months ago, Holdovers.
Makes sense. It was your favorite movie of the year.
Yeah. I have conflicting feelings now that I've gotten a chance to see most of the rest of these movies. But
yeah, what are the only ones you haven't seen? What? Past Lives and Maestro?
And Maestro I have not seen.
And then Doug, you have not seen Zone of Interest, and I've seen all of them, I believe.
Yeah, Zone of Interest is the only one I haven't seen.
All right, so Corey, you're going with your favorite of the year, fitting. Why do I have a feeling it's going to be a repeat of our conversation from last week with what we all pick? Doug, with your split, I think I know what you're picking.
Yep. This is where I've decided it's most appropriate to recognize Killers of the Flower Moon. I went back and forth on where to put Oppenheimer, Nolan, and Marty in Killers of the Flower Moon. Decided the way I was going to handle it was give Christopher Nolan the Best Director, and Killers of the Flower Moon Best Picture. Like I said when we talked, this was my number 1 movie of the year. I thought it was a masterpiece. Loved everything about the movie. Thought it was one of Martin Scorsese's best movies. And so there's no way I just couldn't recognize this movie in one of the top 2 categories. I think it's, I could make an argument for director. It just kind of felt like, almost like bookend movie to Martin Scorsese's career, although I hope he's got more up his sleeve, and I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
Well, we do.
absolutely.
Actually, we know he's got more up his sleeve.
Yeah, he plans on. He doesn't plan on stopping.
Yeah, but I mean, if this was his last movie, I thought it was perfect, and the way the movie ends with him in
it would be that would, like we talked
just,
about the mic drop. That'd be the mic
yeah,
drop of his
chef's
career.
kiss, like
Yeah.
mic drop, I'm out. But yeah, what a hell of a movie.
All right. And for me, I've done splits in the past, but I'm sticking with who I went with for director, and that's Oppenheimer. So I think it's
Yeah,
barring
it's the
some
lock.
crazy upset, it's going to win. But yeah, I picked Spider-Verse as my favorite film of the year, and obviously I picked it for the animated category, but Oppenheimer was my runner-up for the year. And Spider-Verse is nominated here, so Oppenheimer is my pick. I ultimately think it was incredibly well made, and worthy of all the nominations it got. The only one I maybe would say wasn't worthy was Emily Blunt's nomination. I don't think the supporting actress category they got it right this year and who was nominated. Yeah. I probably would swap out 3 of the nominees. But every other nomination it was fucking incredibly deserving of. No questions asked. And it's no real slight on Emily Blunt. I think she's an amazing performer. I just don't think Nolan does the best work with female characters to begin with. So going off on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, for me, it's Oppenheimer. Um, so cool. So yeah, best picture, you got Holders for Killers of the Flower Moon for Doug, and Oppenheimer from myself. We had a lot of splits. We had a few that we all agreed on. And we all agreed on Oppenheimer for film editing, Post Flower Moon for cinematography, Spider-Verse for animated feature, uh, Andre Randolph for the holdovers, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, and Christopher Nolan for director. And we had a bunch where there were two people agreed. There were one holdout where best costume design. 2 of us had Barbie. 1 had Poor Things. We best production design. 2 for Poor Things and 1 for Barbie. Original score, 2 for Oppenheimer, 1 for Poor Things. Original song, 2 for Barbie, what was I Made For, and 1 for Killers of the Flower Moon. Then 2 for international film, 1 abstained, and 2 for Zone of Interest. Best original screenplay, 2 for Holdovers, 1 for Anatomy of a Fall. Best adapted screenplay, 2 for American Fiction, 1 for Barbie. Supporting actor, 2 for Robert Downey Jr., 1 for Robert De Niro. Best actor, 2 for Paul Giamatti, 1 for Jeffrey Wright. And then, yeah, along with Best Picture being completely split, it was Best Visual Effects, 3 different ones: Mission Impossible, The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy. Makeup and hairstyling was Oppenheimer, Maestro, and Poor Things. That might have been the only other full split. Yes, it was. And then lastly, there was 1 category where 2 of us abstained, and Corey picked the Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar for best live action short film. So yeah,
it was the one movie he saw, so it doesn't.
Yeah, and it was the one movie he saw.
It doesn't. It was just he wanted to call it out.
One by default. So yeah, interesting breakdown from all of us. So yeah, definitely excited for the award show this weekend and seeing what actually pulls out the wins and how the acceptance speeches are and whatnot. But that's all we've got today regarding our main topic for the 96th Academy Awards and our wish list for it, our imaginary ballot. Thank you again for listening. Please follow us on all your favorite social media platforms and all your favorite podcast platforms. And then again, if you're interested in our box office pools, or just want to hear more about the films this winter spring have been performing, stick around for some end credit chatter. And then, like I said at the beginning of the episode, since it's our 100th episode, we're going supersized and going to share our spoiler-filled thoughts on Dune Part 2, since we've all seen it and it came out this past week. So if you have not seen Dune Part 2, please tune out now and just know we thank you for having listened to or watched any of our podcasts over the past 4 years since we started doing Lip Breathe Film. But let's move on to our spoiler-filled thoughts on Dune Part 2 now. Corey, you want to kick this off as the only person who has read the novel and let us know how you think it lived up to it?
Yeah, sure. So I thought the film was incredibly strong. That especially after part one, there was, I was confused with, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, but with where they split it, where, Denis decided to split it there. I alluded to that there's still a lot of story to be told. And how are you going to do this in 3 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes? And he ultimately, he did it, and it was done very well. He hit all of the points from the book that needed to be hit to get the story across. But there were definitely some sacrifices that he made because of the time he had, which so he really chose to adapt it in a certain way, and focus on certain things more than others, which is, I think, completely fine. He didn't change anything from the story, really. He just decided to make tweaks here and there. And a lot of it had to do with time. There were a lot more time passed in the book than in the movie, which I was not expecting. Mm-hmm. That was one thing that threw me off. And it worked. It worked really well. Like, it's just something I didn't think of to change from when adapting something to, from a book to a screenplay. Because with a book, you have so much more runway with what you can, kind of paint as a picture. So I thought that was very interesting. I mean, other than that, I thought it was fantastic. It did a really good job adapting the source material.
All right. Well, that's great to hear. As someone who has not read the book, that it lived up to the expectations and was able to achieve as much as it was, despite the runtime and how much it still had to achieve, because part one was very much place setting. You really can see that once you see part two and how much more epic in scope it is, and how much story it really runs through in comparison to part one, which is kind of at a much slower pace, just making you understand the world that you're in and everything like that, and introducing all the characters, even though there were plenty of new characters to introduce in this one, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I thought the film was fucking fantastic. I've already seen it twice. I probably will end up seeing it again. I thought it raised the bar from the first one exponentially, and I really love the first one as well. Can't wait to see where they go with part three. But I think the biggest thing for me was part one very much looked like we were just seeing a typical chosen one, like a typical hero's journey type of series. And it's interesting how they very much subverted that in the third act of this film, of part two. So I'm interested to see how much more it goes with that in part three, or Messiah, whatever the film ends up being called, which I've heard the book is like an epilogue. So kind of to the original Dune novel. But it's funny that it's a subversion because it's subverting all these movies that came out after it, even though the book was written before them. So like, it's very much like Star Wars, like subverting the things that came out like from Star Wars, The Matrix, Harry Potter, et cetera, et cetera. But it came out before these things. So I think that's really fucking cool. Like Frank Herbert was ahead of his time and realizing like it's kind of like Breaking Bad, like realizing like now you don't really like. I hear like with Messiah, you're kind of getting like this was made for like the people that didn't really get like Paul, like he's not a straight up like hero, like good guy or everything. It's similar like Walter White, and whether like you're on his like following him all the way to the end, or whether you're like, okay, this at some point being like, all right, this is like a villain. I don't know if Paul's necessarily gonna be a villain, but he's not the clear like good guy that he was in part 1 and through 2/3 of the way of part 2. So that was my biggest takeaway from the film, along with just everything just being like epic in scope and like elevated from the first one, whether it be the score, the cinematography, the action scenes, the performances, et cetera, et cetera. Doug, what are your thoughts on the film? Because it seemed like you had based on our texts, it seemed like you weren't as impressed. That was the impression I got.
Yeah, I didn't love this movie as much as you guys did, although I thought it was really good. I didn't think it was amazing or incredible, and I think that comes down to, well, the first one didn't really fully hit with me. I enjoy it, and I think that the cinematography is really good and the score is really good. I think it's got pacing issues. The ending,
the first
one, yeah. Going back to the first one, rewatching it, I rewatched it the day before I watched 2, and I just like forgot how like dragged out the ending feels. Where they crash in the desert and they're just kind of like moving from thing to thing, and you're like, you could have cut it off with they see the Fremen, and then they end it, but they like keep going, and you're like, this feels like it's starting to drag. But I guess the big issue that carried over from the first one to the second one for me is I just like don't feel connected to the characters.
Okay.
Which I think has to do with probably the way it's being written. The way I hoped that he would do it, and this is I'm gonna kind of carry over my first to the second one, is like Paul. I understand like Villeneuve or the task here is like trying to tread the line between like you don't want to fully get behind this guy because he's not supposed to be the good guy and the hero. But I thought it would have been fun and more interesting if I did care a little bit more about Paul and I did get more invested in him and his revenge. And then at the end, like kind of make me feel bad about the fact that I was rooting for Paul. Like kind of like wait till the end in order to kind of like be like, he can give like a speech or something like kill them all.
Yeah.
Or like kill everybody, and you're like, oh shit, like maybe I didn't want him to be like, maybe I feel bad. It kind of like what I thought Last of Us did really well, part 2.
Yeah.
Where you're like you're like Ellie and you're like seeking revenge, and then you're like, yeah, kill him, like screw all these guys, like I just want to. You're just like on this warpath, and I was kind of like behind it until like the game is like, did you really think you should have been behind it? Like, was this really the right? Like, were you really the good guy in this? And you're like, and you're like, oh shit. And so I kind of wish like Dune,
another good example.
Dune, I kind of wish kind of took more of that approach where I was like, hell yeah, Paul, like get revenge and like let's just like, you know, screw the Harkonnens or the Harkonnens or whatever they call them. Like, let's kill them and like let's have this like moment where. Because if you think about it, Paul's story is kind of similar to like the story in Gladiator where they think they killed this guy.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and is like, you guys didn't kill me. I'm actually alive and I'm going to get revenge.
Yeah.
And when you think about that moment in Gladiator when he finally is like, I'm here, I'm actually alive. Like, it's just such a big moment. And it felt like there wasn't that big moment at the end.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't give a big epic speech at that moment or like lead from that.
And no one seems like surprised that he's actually like survived.
He just walks in, he's got to do, and
yeah, and then he's just like the Duke, who's this big bad character. He's kind of just like, "You're dead, Granddad," and
yeah,
it was like
they don't waste time. Like same with.
So I guess that's part of it too. Is
character, like Josh Brolin kills him so quickly.
Yeah,
and I think that's where the time aspect comes into play with the book, because it really takes place over years. A lot like once Paul goes deep into the Fremen, and like it's like years until all the other stuff happens. But they clearly, they couldn't do that in the movie.
I think my complaint kind of boils down to, I think they spent a lot of time on like the cinematography and how beautiful they can make scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're like story beats, because they spent so much time on these like big epic scenes, felt a little rushed, where like the story didn't fully hit for me. But the cinematography is like some of the best cinematography I've ever seen. The score, I think Hans Zimmer delivered a next level score that was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and remember when we saw the first one, I wasn't even like crazy about the score for the first one. I was like, it kind of reminds me of like fucking ripping off Wonder Woman at parts.
Yeah, like the
yeah.
I've
turned on that a lot. Both
and this score is like
and this one is just the score is just way better.
And two, like when people ask me like about Dune and whether they should see it, well, one I'm always like, did you like the first one? And if they say yes or yeah, it was pretty good, I was like, the second one's better in every way. Yeah. Like the pacing's better, the story's more interesting, the cinematography improves, and the score is better. Like everything, like it just levels up on the first one. So if you like the first one, like there's no doubt you like the second one. With my reservations about the movie, I'm already trying to figure out how I'm going to see it again, because it's an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when you think about
luckily it's an IMAX for like the entire month.
Yeah. But when you think about like the theatrical experience and getting back to all that, like this is one where I would tell anybody, like, do not wait to see this when it comes out at home. You've got to see this on the biggest screen possible, with the loudest like sound, and like that's the only, and like that's part of the reason why I'm like, I need to figure out a way to get back in theaters, because it's not going to be the same at home. It's just not going to play the same.
No. All right, so we've got a lot of new cast members added to this. We have Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, Lea Seydoux.
Majority of them have like very little screen time.
Yes. You've got your Anya Taylor-Joy with the briefest of screen time of new characters.
Which I'm still trying to figure out. Like, it seems like they're setting her up for Messiah, but I'm like, how is that going to work? Like, she's still
I've been asking like Corey questions, like, how exactly is this going to work? But
like just a huge time jump, or like how do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to spoil Messiah for people, since we didn't say we would be doing that at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't need to spoil Messiah,
we can speculate like what they're going to do.
She's
you would think, is there a time jump, or did she age differently because the order of life has been like she's that went inside of her as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to have her in the second one unless she's going to be
she's going to have to have a bigger role.
She's going to have a part in the third one.
Yeah, she has to be pivotal.
And she's a fetus in the second one.
Yeah.
So she's got to age to Anya Taylor-Joy's age at some point. So that implies to me that there has to be like a significant time jump.
How do you time jump that far and keep Timothée Chalamet and like all these young actors like Zendaya?
So I did read, and Corey can validate this, that one of the properties of the spice is that it makes you age a lot slower.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So they could do a significant time jump and just say like the spice is keeping Timmy looking young.
So is Anya Taylor-Joy just like chilling away from the spice? Like, why wouldn't she stay young? I don't know. We'll find it out in
send her. Maybe she's not on
2027.
Yeah, maybe she's She goes off world. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, there's no guarantee. I mean, the next movie's in Arrakis. Like, it's clearly going to a planetary war. So,
which that wasn't
houses.
That wasn't. I mean, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but
which is fine.
We're spitballing. What wasn't clear to me is I understood the Fremen's advantage on their own planet that they knew, and like, they knew very well. They could ride the worms. They were, the sandworms they could basically use to their advantage in every way, shape, or form on that planet.
Yeah.
They've developed suits and processes where they can bury themselves in the sand and jump out and surprise people.
Fucking destroy people. So sick.
But it didn't seem to me like that was a group of like that would be super effective. Just like leaving the planet. Outside of that planet. So it's like, how are they going to go to these other people's planets and just like overwhelm them? Like, I just didn't really understand like how that was going to work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe that's clear in the book on like why they're able to do that. Is it just like there's so many of them but like, how do you knock out the defenses of all these other? I don't know. It just seemed that was like when it ended. I was like, how are they going to win?
Yeah.
What would have made more sense to me is if they were like, because everyone needs the spice, right? That's the whole point of Dune.
Yeah.
Of just being like, well, you have to come and get it, and then just take people out on your own planet. But
So who would you say the MVP of the new cast was, and would you say that same person is the MVP of the film?
So it's Austin Butler is the MVP of the new cast.
Agreed.
MVP of the film.
He really stood out for me on the second viewing. I said to Corey, I didn't realize how much he changed his voice to sound like have an accent similar to Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really fucking cool.
Yeah, it worked very well.
Yeah, so he's really good. I guess it's more surprising than anything is that for me, Timothée Chalamet.
Okay.
Oh, he was very good. Yeah.
Because he went from like the first one, he's this like little like nothing of a character. Like he's just kind of like you feel like you could just kind of like push him over.
Mm-hmm. And
to like
definitely couldn't push him over in this one.
To the second movie, he actually like I thought felt like this force to be reckoned with, which I thought was surprising because it was hard for me to imagine how Timothée Chalamet could have a presence about him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you don't look at Timothée Chalamet and think action hero.
Yeah, his transition that surprised me too. That's one part of like the casting I didn't get. I was like, I don't know how he's gonna sell this when it happens, but he did. I mean, he really did. He was fantastic.
But I've only seen the movie the one time, so I would say that was surprising to me, and because of that, I thought he was a highlight. Austin Butler was the other one that's, his performance that stands out the most to me. Yeah. Zendaya I thought was good, but
like
kind of reminded me of...
Is she like a new character? Like, she was in so little of the first one. It would be kind of
just reminds me...
She was great. I loved her in it. She was probably one of my favorite performances, as was Chalamet.
Yeah, and apparently her story, the way that they handled Chani was her character, which I thought they were saying Johnny, and I was like, that's weird that her name is Johnny. But they were saying that was a big change from the book.
Yeah.
Of the fact that she was like not behind the fact that Paul was the like Messiah. Like apparently she's just like all in on it too, just like everybody else in the book.
She's like a true believer, like Stilgar, like Javier Bardem.
Yeah, and she's just like, cool, I'll be Paul Atreides' concubine.
Yeah.
Like that's fine. That's
for me. Very submissive to it. Like what was going on.
I like the way they did this.
Where she was just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like I knew, like she knew him as the person and was like, knew that he was like, I'm not the Messiah. Like I'm not this guy.
And movie doesn't work as well if it goes that other direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, like him embracing it and her being like, what the hell are you doing? Like
like you're becoming what you said you're person.
Yeah, you're this is not what we were talking about. Like you're not the person I knew anymore. So I thought that was good, and I thought that kind of sets things up for where she could go in the third one, which
I'm excited to see where two of them and Florence Pugh go for the next. Because Florence Pugh didn't get a ton to do in this one. Clearly, is going to get a lot more in the next one, as she is going to be marrying Paul, and as he becomes emperor, taking over for Christopher Walken. But yeah, for me, low-key MVP I think was Javier Bardem.
Funny.
Loved his performance as Stilgar in this one. He was both hilarious and powerful as a true believer, in Paul and the religion, the prophecy, and everything like that. And he didn't really have too much to do in the first one, or impress me much with the little bit he did in the first one. But I thought he killed it in part 2.
Yeah, you're right. He was really good. I mean, a lot of his lines, I was just chuckling at. His delivery was just so good, and
he wasn't he wasn't a buffoon, even though he said funny things. So it was tough to pull off.
Yeah, because he's kind of the guy where he's there. I was just thinking about Paul's just kind of I'm not the Messiah. This isn't me. And he's just oh, so humble. That's exactly what the Messiah would say.
Oh, I died during that line.
That's exactly what the one would say.
When Paul picks what his name is going to be, and everyone's laughing, and he's no, that is the tiny mouse. That is an incredible choice. It learns how to get water itself, and stay safe in the desert despite being so small, so wise. Everything. He was incredible.
Oh, it was so good.
Now I can talk about it. The one major thing that frustrated me about part 1 was the lack of Stilgar. He was present in that story, but he does so much more in the book, and he's such a favorite character for me in the book. So that was a huge disappointment for me in the part 1 movie. And then them bringing it back and kind of giving him his spotlight in part 2. I was yes.
Yeah. I liked what Josh Brolin, what he got to do in comparison to the first one.
Gurney's another one.
I'd say the most craziest performance for me in the film was Rebecca Ferguson, and how much her character, how weird her character becomes in part 2.
As soon as she drinks that worm juice,
once she drinks it, she changes completely.
They even changed. He did some interesting things with her as well, which I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, she becomes, because she's drinks the water first, so she's the one that's just
she drinks it 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, and so she's just I'm completely evil now.
Yeah. We have to get everyone to believe Paul's the Messiah. No, we'll start with the weak ones.
Yeah,
people who are easily brainwashed and
talking to the fetus, who then now is sentient.
Oh, wild.
And telepathically communicating with her.
And I was telling Murph that after we saw part 2, that was very shocking to me, because in the book, Alia, I think that's the sister. She's born. She's throughout that whole story, she's actually born, and she's a toddler. So for him to make the decision to have the connection and the communication happening from her womb or unborn child was really cool, but very strange.
It's definitely strange,
I liked it.
But I thought
I liked it.
It fit with the
cool.
weirdness of the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a very clever change that I think worked really well for the movie.
And who did you think was the MVP, Corey?
Austin Butler. Yeah, I mean, Fade is a very showy character, just by nature. But he's also if he doesn't work, then I think the story falls apart. So he really knocked it out of the park. I think he's one of the best villains for the amount of time he's also in it, one of the best villains like I've seen in a very long time. I think he's up there with like the past couple years, like Josh Brolin's Thanos. Just violent, very scary, very interesting. Every time he's on screen, he commands.
Yeah, you're like, well, who's next? He's slicing this time. Who's he fucking stabbing?
Yeah.
Feel bad for all those people who fucking work with him.
Yeah.
You've been working with Batista. Like, you're just gonna fucking die or get your ass kicked.
This is the worst boss ever.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, no, his performance was incredible. I thought it was really impressive what he did with not only with the amount of time that he was in the movie, but with when he showed up. Because like when we saw it for the first time, in the back of my head, I'm like, why the fuck have they not shown Fade yet? Like, we're like an hour into this movie. First, I was like, we're like a half hour, we're 45 minutes, and it's just continuing to just marinate on Arrakis, following Paul. Like, Fade isn't even like mentioned until well into an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. So,
all right. Anything in particular we're looking most forward to for part 3? Or Corey, would you say there's anything like about spoilers, like anything we should be like really excited about, and like character wise or directions of the series?
I think that the only thing that I will say is that the story goes in another twisty, unexpected direction. It doesn't continue to go in like, in the direction where you think.
Good. That's exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
since we're gonna have to wait so long for part 3,
and they showed this. They did this in the movie, in both movies, in a different way from the book, but like time plays a huge part into the movie, especially with Paul. He's able to like see all the past, all the futures, he's
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I thought that too.
There's only one path.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
There's this many different possibilities. There's only one that we can win.
Yeah. It was a very Doctor Strange moment. But time, and I expect like Denis is going to continue with this, but like the passage of time and how like it's manipulated in that story is a huge part going forward. It'll be interesting how he handles it, because he's handled it very differently already with part 1 and part 2. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Doug, as a non-reader, is there anything you're like most looking forward to out of the next one?
I mean, where I think it's going is, this kind of felt like these movies, and even like some of the clothing, like with the hood and stuff, it kind of felt like the birth of like the bad guy.
Yeah.
Where I'm hoping like
you very much had a Anakin Skywalker type,
just like a better
cloak, like at the end of part 2.
Yeah, like a better prequel to how like the big bad becomes the big bad.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that by the third one he's like evil emperor, and then I was hoping that like Zendaya somehow plays into, like the one that takes him down, basically.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
is kind of where I'm hoping it goes, but I have no idea where it's going, and that seems a little bit too obvious based on what Corey said for that to be where the book is going, but it seems like he's taking the Chani character in a different direction, and I don't know why not have her end where she ends if she's not going to be involved in taking him down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing where it goes with this next generation of characters that are in play now, with Anya Taylor-Joy, with Fade's unborn daughter, with Léa Sedous's character.
That's true.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that. Like they could prop him up as the real Messiah.
there are more Harkonnens in the fam, and
even though
Paul's a Harkonnen too.
Yeah, Paul's a Harkonnen, and Rebecca Ferguson's character, which they like didn't seem to matter at all for the purposes of the story. It was kind of
my guess
disappointing
is
what they did with that
in the next one. But,
Princess
Rulon,
Rulon is like a big part.
I would figure that she would have to be, and so we'll see it in a few years. We'll probably see that around the same time we see the next Spider-Verse movie.
We're seeing it before
both of those trilogies close.
We should do like a bet. Which one comes out first?
Which one actually comes out first? As far as its box office goes, so didn't get as high as I was thinking as far as its opening weekend. I had talked about 100 or 90 to 100, potentially going over 100 or potentially even topping Dune's lifetime gross. It did have an 82.5 million opening weekend. Since we're recording this on a Saturday morning, we could actually talk about its full first week, and it had a $111 million opening week. So it's had nice legs throughout the week. So at this point, after its opening week, it already has surpassed Dune's 109 million lifetime gross. So you got a movie with legs on it, Doug. You've quickly taken far away the lead with 230 million with your 5 films that have come out so far. I'm in second with 153 million with my 4 films that have come out so far, and Corey's in third with 68 million with his 3 films that have come out. Corey's got Kung Fu Panda 4 coming out this weekend, which should be a big battle for number 1 with Dune Part 2 second weekend. Doug, you have Imaginary opening this weekend, the horror movie, Blumhouse horror movie. So we'll see what that can do. But that should be interesting to see how these temples, the rest of the temples in March, perform in comparison to Dune Part 2. Which
I'm a little I'm a little worried about the timing with Ghostbusters. Like that's coming out soon too, and it's like, you should probably have like pushed this a little bit further away from like the Dune.
Yeah, and Godzilla comes out like the week after that. Like, why did you put all these out like right on top of one another?
It doesn't make sense.
Like you had January and February with nothing coming out, and then like you got April with like no temples. I mean, Godzilla's close enough to April, but you still like, why put them all right on top of one another?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
I mean, at least with Kung Fu Panda, it's a different demographic than the other 3.
Yeah, and even like that.
Even Ghostbusters is somewhat a different demographic, and Imaginary's horror, so it's its own thing.
Yeah, it's completely different, and that's not going to do well anyway.
But we'll see how. I haven't looked at estimates on Deadline yet for this weekend. They're probably up right around now, but we won't get into that. But it's going to be interesting over the next 2 months to see how Dune Part 2 continues to perform, and then for you, Imaginary, Love Lies Bleeding, Ghostbusters. For me, Arthur the King, Godzilla and Kong, The First Omen, and Civil War. And then for Corey, Kung Fu Panda, Luca, The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, Abigail, and Challengers. So he's got a lot left. So we'll see, Doug, if you stick with the lead for the rest of the season, or if Corey can pull ahead because he's got a few potential heavy hitters, or if mine all are just consistent and overperform, and I can somehow get in the lead. But so far Dune is looking good, and we're definitely getting our Dune Part 3 based on this opening week. Hasn't officially been greenlit, but it's absolutely happening.
I'm sure it was already.
It was like it was preordained. It was preordained, but they haven't officially announced it. So that's where we're at box office wise. Anything else you guys want to shout out about the box office, or anything in relation to Hidden 100 episodes before I close this out?
No, I don't think so. It's crazy that we've hit 100 episodes.
Yeah, no, I mean, we just started this fucking during the beginning of the pandemic, like a little under 4 years from now. I think we started like April of 2020, and then it's now March of 2024 somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been fun continuing to talk about this shit with you guys. Looking forward to doing it for another 100 episodes, and with our pace will be way longer than it took for the first 100. Maybe it'll probably be 2030 if we're continuing to do it. If we're actually going to hit 300 episodes, or if we're going to actually hit 200 episodes.
The 100th episode will be the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Verse episode.
Yeah,
when that gets released.
Yeah, exactly.
Barring like another like event that keeps us all inside for a period of time. In which case we could pleasure plowing through those episodes again.
Exactly.
But hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, it's been fun and been a good way to talk about movies and share thoughts about movies in a way that is a little bit easier and more fun than just text messages.
Exactly. We do it as much for us, probably more. We do it probably more for us than for our listeners, but we hope our listeners are entertained. But as always, this has been Corey, Doug, and Murph at Live Breathe Film. Our sincere thanks to everyone who has listened to any one of our episodes or supported us over the past 4 years. We hope all you film fans will stick with us over our next 100 episodes. But until then, enjoy the Oscars, and we'll see you again next time for episode 101.
Bye, fam.